We are gathered in Doha to address one of the defining questions of our time, the Palestinian cause and the regional balance of power in the context of an emerging multipolar world. This theme compels us to confront not only the devastating realities, Israeli genocide in Gaza, but also the deeper transformation of the international system itself. For more than 2 decades, we have been told that the world is in transition, that we are moving from one global order to another. Today, that narrative is no longer sufficient. The world is not just transitioning, it has already transitioned. We are living through the consequences of a historic rupture. The assumptions that once structured the post-war international system have fractured. Norms that define the limits of acceptable behavior have weakened. Pandemics have exposed the fragility of global governance. Genocide, in the case of Israeli genocide, has returned to the center of international politics, not as an exception, but as a tolerated reality. International institutions designed to prevent these strategies failed publicly, repeatedly, and structurally. As we move into 2026, international system is characterized by fragmentation, competition, and institutional fatigue. Great power rivalry increasingly dominates global agendas. In this environment, uncertainty is now structural reality. What fundamentally distinguishes our era is the full integration of information warfare into the logic of conflict itself. Wars are no longer confined to physical battlefields. They are fought through narratives, digital platforms, and perception management. Technology companies, platform owners, and algorithm designers have emerged as powerful non-state actors capable of shaping political outcomes without democratic accountability. Algorithm control has introduced a new form of domination. It determines what is visible, what is credible, and what disappears. At this point, we must confront a fundamental question. What principle can generate order when hierarchy breaks down, institutions weaken, and power fragments? The answer is justice, not just as a moral aspiration, but as an organizing principle of political order. Justice produces legitimacy. Where justice exists, order is internalized rather than imposed. But justice cannot exist without truth, and truth cannot survive without conditions that protect it. Our region carries a civilizational legacy that binds truth and justice together. From Al-Farabi to Ibn Khaldun, our intellectual tradition teaches us that civilizations endure not through domination, but through legitimacy, cohesion, and moral purpose. The Middle East today is experiencing multiple and overlapping crises. The center of gravity is shifting. Influence today is no longer measured solely in military terms. It is defined by economic capacity, diplomatic networks, reconstruction leverage, and coalition-building ability. Secondly, the boundaries between security and humanitarian domains have collapsed. Humanitarian crises are no longer merely accompany wars, they shape strategic outcomes. Third, while regional actors now possess unprecedented diplomatic and economic capacity, coordination remains the central challenge. Without collective action, individual power cannot generate durable stability. Fourth, the day after has become as strategic as the war itself. Gaza and Syria reminds us that wars are not concluded by ceasefires alone, but by governance arrangements, reconstruction frameworks, and political pathways. In this critical juncture, Turkey's vision is anchored in the principle of regional ownership, a strategic framework that prioritizes local agency, operationalizes regional diplomacy, and strengthens collective capacity. As you all know, regional problems demand regional solutions. Our region now stands at such a juncture that either it resolves its internal fractures through cooperation, justice, and shared responsibility, or it turns inward, competing, fragmenting, and exporting instability outward. If regional actors fail to manage their own conflicts, they do not remain local. They become fuel for global anarchy. In this sense, our region is no longer just affected by the crisis of the international system. It is positioned to either mitigate that crisis or deepen it. There is no doubt that our region is facing precisely such conditions in resulting an unprecedented wave of insecurity. This insecurity spans military conflict, humanitarian catastrophe, economic pressure, information warfare, and political polarization. In Gaza, this wave of insecurity is visible in its starkest form: mass devastation, deep trauma, genocide, and humanitarian collapse. In this context, regional and Gulf actors possess decisively tools: diplomatic leverage, reconstruction capacity, mediation channels, and consensus-building authority. I believe that we must unite around two absolute non-negotiables, bringing this war to an end and preventing any form of displacement. Second, we must actively shape the day after by putting forward credible governance frameworks, rather than having a vacuum that could easily be filled by destabilizing agendas. Third, we must ensure that reconstruction is firmly linked to political viability, effective protection mechanisms, and lasting stability. As Turkey, we have taken a series of concrete steps to ensure that our region contributes to global stability in peace and security in this new era. And we invite all countries in the region to share in this common responsibility. Our core conviction is that stability can only be achieved through inclusive cooperation, mutual trust, and collective wisdom. We have taken significant initiatives to establish the mechanisms needed to resolve all disputes and disagreements in our region through dialogue and diplomacy. From the normalization process between Azerbaijan and Armenia to relations between Somalia and Ethiopia, from the grain corridor agreement implemented between Ukraine and Russia to the facilitating role we assumed during the recent Iran crisis. All of the examples are manifesting this initiative. At a time when the world is becoming increasingly complex, we are encouraging the formation of an inclusive and sustainable regional security architecture. We believe this architecture must not only be capable of producing solutions to inter-regional challenges, but also of building a shared capacity to respond to threats originating beyond the region. In addition, we are devoting sustained effort to the recovery, reconstruction, and rebuilding of countries that have suffered profound devastation due to civil wars. The stabilization of Syria and the strengthening of institutional capacity are central to these efforts. We believe a similar approach should be implemented for Yemen and Sudan once hostilities end. Moreover, to ensure these initiatives yield lasting and effective outcomes, we attach particular importance to institutionalization and continue to advance these efforts through various initiatives and multilateral platforms. Also, we are contributing to the establishment of diverse cooperation mechanisms to address the new wave of risks and insecurities in our region. Through all these efforts, we aim to build an information, knowledge, and diplomacy ecosystem of our own. We want this ecosystem to reflect the realities of our region, foster collective wisdom, and contribute to the emergence of a more balanced global order. Finally, we will continue our work with determination both in bilateral and multilateral engagements and in comparable international forums to develop a shared language for peace and stability. Dear friends, For too long, this region has been narrated by others, framed through crisis, fear, and Orientalism. That era must now end. Narrative is power. Whoever defines meaning shapes order. Our region must reclaim authorship of its own story. Of course, not to mythologize itself, but to articulate with clarity and confidence its civilizational mission in this moment of global rupture. This is why Turkey's call under the leadership of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan that a fairer world is possible resonates so deeply. It is not merely a declaration of hope, it's a strategic horizon, a conviction that justice must consciously construct it. The world has already changed. The responsibility before us is to ensure that it changes in the right direction. This requires cooperation across borders, resistance to algorithmic domination, defense of truth, restoration of justice, and the courage to imagine a new global order grounded in dignity and legitimacy. This is how truth becomes justice. This is how justice becomes order. And this is how a region once spoken about becomes a region that speaks for itself. Thank you for your kind attention. I extend my deepest appreciation to our hosts, the organizers of this distinguished forum, and to all participants for their valuable contributions. I hope that our deliberations today will not only enrich our understanding, but also inspire collective action toward a more just, peaceful, and humane international order. Thank you very much.